Hi there, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. Welcome to the 75th Celebrity Synastry chart reading where we will be covering Zendaya and Jacob Eldori. For those new and returning, I take notes on a synastry chart looking at the personal planet signs aspects and of birth times available house overlays. I also add my insights and interpretations along the way. Feel free to leave your own in the comments below. Before we start the reading, give this video a like and subscribe for more Celebrity Synastry chart readings from me. Let's get into it. Starting off with the sun, we have Zendaya's sun in Virgo and Jacob's sun in Cancer. It's a moody relationship and they take care of each other. I mean, the whole euphoria thing, I believe that's, where they are associated together. That, as far as I know, is a pretty moody teenage show, so it kind of adds up. They tend to irritate each other and Zendaya doesn't understand Jacob's sadness. Zendaya can make Jacob anxious. Jacob's sun overlaid in Zendaya's 5th house. They have creative and fun dates and Zendaya enjoys the adoration from Jacob. Desire to have children together. I don't believe they ever had a very serious relationship as far as I know. I'm 99% sure they don't have children together. But, that kind of is an indicator of how serious their relationship, but we'll see more as it goes. Jacob defines beauty according to Zendaya. I'm pretty sure most of the, general population now do. Jacob may be overlooking Zendaya's flaws, and this is characterized by luck and pleasure. Definitely with their, career success, I'm sure it is, at their age and everything. Jacob sees Zendaya as a source of pleasure. Zendaya's sun opposite Jacob's moon. There's stronger mutual attraction and their differences attract them. Always perfect. I mean, so far we haven't really seen any strong differences, so we'll see how that goes. Both are drawn to the relationship and Zendaya may find Jacob too dependent, potentially going back to how she doesn't understand his sadness. If he is, the kind of sad person that will, tend to reach out for others for help and maybe become dependent on others to, alleviate their sadness or comfort them. Potentially that is where it could be from. Jacob may find Zendaya overbearing. Zendaya's sun squared Jacob's Pluto. It's love-hate and they have a strong magnetic connection. It's hard to remain just friends after and both need to learn not to focus on their ego. I mean, definitely in the sort of careers they are. And I feel like they're both very successful and well admired. I mean, particularly seen with Zendaya. I mean, as I said, how Jacob defines beauty according to us, kind of, with everyone else because she is very well regarded. It's transformative and they want to learn everything about the other. There are power struggles and there's a possibility to encourage the other's negative qualities. We haven't really seen anything regarding negative qualities besides Jacob being a bit more sad and anxious. And potentially with Zendaya, if we're seeing this whole thing not to focus on the ego, and then Jacob is, defying beauty according to Zendaya, ignoring her flaws and everything, potentially she might gain a bit of an ego here. So those are the sort of negative qualities that could be encouraged thus far from what we see. Possibility of an unhealthy obsession with the other, and they both experience emotions they never felt before in a relationship. As far as I know, let me know if it's any different in the comments below, but these two are kind of the first sort of public relationship the other have had. Zendaya and Tom Holland, yes, they are a big thing, but I believe this relationship was before that. I'm not sure if they have been associated with other people before, this, but, let me know. They both want to be the dominant one, so I guess where the power struggles come through. Jacob's sun sextiles Zendaya's moon. It's an easy friendship and it's a fulfilling relationship. There's natural compatibility and they are cooperative with each other, which I feel like these are nice things that connect back to how they take care of each other. That's very nice. Jacob depends on Zendaya's support. So there seems to be an element where Jacob is a bit reliant on Zendaya's support and comfort if he tends to be a bit more sad and anxious. Zendaya trusts Jacob's wisdom. Jacob's sun squares Zendaya's Mercury. They have similar problem solving and they don't always see eye to eye. There's a lack of emotional satisfaction and they challenge each other's perspectives. Contrast in temperament and life goals. This is interesting because life goals in particular, I feel like they would have both had similar ones because they are both pretty strong in the whole acting thing. but hopefully we will see a bit more. It could be in other areas of their life. They find it difficult to discuss ideas, and they both need to respect the other's differences. See, this whole, we saw it before, like being attracted to the differences, so it's starting to come through a bit. Zendaya sees Jacob as too self-centered. I don't like seeing the whole self-centered thing. He's dependent on, Zendaya, and potentially him being a bit more sad and anxious. I hope it's not a situation or a case of like, where it is a sad and anxious person that, kind of makes everything about them, can come off as very self-centered because they are kind of focused on their own sadness and anxiety and everything, and just, rely on everyone while kind of ignoring everyone else's problems. Like, they can tend to, seem self-centered for that. Jacob sees Zendaya as too rational and emotionally attached. I wonder in what way, I know like it's weird to say, what way does Zendaya support Jacob when it seems to be in that sort of comfort way? But if he sees her as being emotionally detached, I want to see a bit more, because then it's like, what's the point of going to Zendaya for support when she's emotionally detached? Or maybe that's a good thing, a comfort way for Jacob, she's emotionally detached, kind of takes it away from him. Jacob's sun opposite Zendaya's Jupiter. There's a positive meeting and a difficult marriage. I mean, they weren't married, and I don't think they're on their way to getting married anymore. But it's interesting we see this, and there's a desire to have children together. So I potentially, even if they weren't in that kind of serious relationship, maybe they were on the way to, or in discussion to have a bit more of a serious relationship. There's a sense of unreliability, and they have different life philosophies. So potentially with like life goals, like potentially they see life a bit differently. Even if they do want to be successful in their industries, maybe they see like their success differently. There's a desire to make each other happy. I like this part of the relationship. They want to make each other happy, take care of each other. That's nice. Jacob sometimes sees Zendaya as unrealistic, and Zendaya sometimes sees Jacob as self-centered. I don't like how this is coming up again. That's bad. I don't like that. Sometimes can expect too much of each other, and Jacob brings stability to this relationship. I mean, he brings stability in the sense that I feel like he's really gluing them together. Jacob's sun squares Zendaya's Saturn. Zendaya sacrifices her freedom, and Jacob is sensitive to criticism. This just worries me. We seem to be seeing more indicators of like, Jacob being this like sad person that Zendaya has to come and help. Like, I don't like seeing that. It's not a great thing, is it? Both attempt to support the other, and Jacob may outgrow Zendaya. They both feel mature, and Zendaya tends to be critical of Jacob. I mean, it's going back to the beginning where she doesn't understand his sadness, and he confused by his anxiety. So it's not exactly surprising. I feel like if you don't understand something, you tend to be a bit more critical of it. Jacob feels blocked and discouraged by Zendaya. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, we see Jacob sees her as emotionally detached and also potentially being more critical. And he's discouraged by Zendaya, not surprisingly so, considering what I just said. Why is he going to her? Jacob sees Zendaya as the traditions he wants to overcome interesting. Both need to really want the relationship to work. I agree, because even though it seems like they both really want to make each other happy and want to try to be cooperative, I feel like there are just some like big blocks in the way of that.
Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favourite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading.
So now it's time for moon. We have Zendaya's moon in Taurus and Jacob's moon in Pisces. They both love music and nature, and Zendaya is a rock for Jacob. Yeah, definitely. Jacob is not as grounded as Zendaya. I see this, I mean, purely from like an elemental astrological point of view. With what we're seeing so far, like Zendaya, you know, sun in Virgo, moon in Taurus, pretty grounded, down-to-earth person, literally down-to-earth, you know, the earth sign. And then you have Jacob, sun in Cancer and moon in Pisces, you know, water element, emotional, what we're seeing from Jacob. So in a literal astrological elemental sense, yeah, obviously Jacob is not as grounded as Zendaya. Complementary and harmonious relationship, and they both actively seek a peaceful environment. Maybe that is why Jacob likes Zendaya. Maybe she is just a peaceful person to be around, even if she isn't as like emotionally detached and tends to be critical. Maybe she's just peaceful to be around. Jacob's moon overlaid in Zendaya's first house. Both feel safe expressing their feelings, and Jacob brings out a sensitive Zendaya. Maybe because, I mean, she seems to be a bit more like rational and a bit more, you know, less emotional. So potentially maybe Jacob brings that out in Zendaya, her wanting to be a bit more emotionally. Jacob feels immediately safe with Zendaya, and it's a tender and warm relationship. Zendaya's moon is sextile Jacob's Mercury. They have long conversations and they feel comfortable being open with each other. There's mutual understanding and friendship. We're seeing a lot of friendship, but we're also seeing the more serious one. So I really want to, hopefully by the end of the reading, we get like a nice sort of like, you know, balance point. Balance point, that's not the right word. A weight on one particular thing. I'm imagining those, I'm losing my words today. I am imagining the Libra, you know, judge things. I am way too into astrology if I'm like the Libra thing. I'm sure you guys know what I mean. The whole, you know, we bring weight to one particular idea. They both like a busy environment, good with considering the careers they're in. They value the other's opinion and advice. This is interesting. I'm pretty sure we've already seen this a couple times before, like discussing ideas. They value the other's opinion and advice, but it seems like they don't necessarily always take it on. It's kind of like, what's the point of going for the advice when you kind of know you're not going to take it on anyway? Zendaya's moon is squared Jacob's Uranus. Zendaya is possessive of Jacob. Interesting. This is a bit of a curveball. The relationship can begin suddenly. I feel like, you know, they're sort of, I don't know what you would call it, sad boy relationship. Because we did see that Jacob feels immediately safe with Zendaya. That whole part of the relationship, I feel like would have been a sudden thing. Zendaya feels emotionally insecure around Jacob. Interesting. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Zendaya's Mercury in Libra and Jacob's Mercury in Cancer. These are both cardinal signs. Conflict between Zendaya's detachment and Jacob's attachment. I totally see this. That's basically what the reading has been about so far. Jacob can be impatient with Zendaya's excessive analysis. Maybe this is where he interprets her as being critical, because if Zendaya is this like down-to-earth person, like very rational and everything, I'm sure when dealing with Jacob, she would potentially be a bit more analytical and trying to rationalize his emotions. Maybe he can interpret that as being a bit more critical, something he doesn't like, so that's why he's impatient with her. Neither are self-centered. I see this. Like, I mean, Jacob, he's a bit questionable. But we have been seeing, you know, they want to help each other, they're cooperative with each other, they seem to value each other's advice and opinion. The Mercury signs are squared together, so they have a contrasting approach to life. This is also a very interesting element. And like, I think considering we have been seeing difficult marriage and desire to have children together, a bit more serious things, I wonder if they kind of were considering that, but like, whoa, we have a very different approach to life. It just wouldn't work. They need to make an effort to be tolerant of each other. I feel like they are making that effort. It seems like it. I don't get ignorant from this relationship. Difficult to work together. This is interesting because I feel like that's where a good chunk of their relationship would have been. So, difficult to have a harmonious relationship, and there's a difference in opinions. Maybe that is why it would be difficult to work together, because It really seems like they have their differences when it comes to how they view things. Frustrating debates, and they think the other is wrong. Both feel they cannot get along with each other. Interesting. Zendaya's Mercury conjunct Jacob's Mars. Discussions and intellectual debates are prioritized. I find it's very interesting, this whole thing with discussion. Like, I feel like the communication is very interesting because it seems like they want to try understand each other, but it's just not happening because of their differences and how they view things. Jacob feels frustrated with Zendaya, and Zendaya sees Jacob as irritable again. Oh my gosh, that's so bad. Zendaya's Mercury trine Jacob's Uranus. Zendaya sees Jacob as an intellectual companion. See, I feel like we did see love-hate before. I feel like love-hate with the communication because, like this point, we do see that they do seem to want to communicate with each other and, want to be open with each other and discuss ideas, but it's just not working. They're perceptive and intuitive of each other, and there's open communication. I see open communication, for sure. Zendaya becomes more inventive around Jacob, and they work together on goals. I mean, the whole, euphoria thing is a big goal for them. They encourage the other's visions, which I feel like is nice, particularly considering if they have very different visions for life. Zendaya's Mercury trine Jacob's Neptune. Jacob inspires Zendaya's imagination. Interesting. I mean, we just saw it, but I feel like maybe that is where Zendaya really appreciates Jacob. Maybe he is kind of like a muse to her. They get each other and they share an appreciation for the arts. They are forgiving of each other. I mean, that would definitely help in this relationship. Zendaya's Mercury sextile Jacob's Pluto. Interested in unique subjects together, and it's a therapist-patient relationship. Guesses as to who is the therapist and who is the patient. They get to the bottom of things quickly. I'm sure with Zendaya playing the therapist, I'm sure they would. She seems to be very on it. They share a lot together, and Zendaya is fascinated by Jacob's depth. Interesting, because it seems like on one hand, maybe she's just irritated with his views, and that whole sort of intellectual communication thing. But if she is also irritated by Jacob's just, clinginess, I guess you could say, he's sadness and everything. Maybe it is a bit of a love-hate thing where she is is irritated by it, but also fascinated by it. Zendaya uplifts Jacob. I see this. It seems like maybe Zendaya is there to kind of rationalize things and be a bit more of a peaceful person for Jacob to be around rather than an emotional person. Tell each other their deeper secrets and they resolve deeper matters together. They both heal from past relationships together. Interesting. It seems like past relationships have some kind of significance to this relationship, considering we did see before how, in this relationship, they've never felt this way before sort of thing. Jacob opens up Zendaya to new ways of thinking, and Jacob appreciates Zendaya's humor. Yeah, I feel like she's just a peaceful person for Jacob to be around. A kind of distraction of sorts. Jacob's Mercury opposite Zendaya's Jupiter. They have different philosophical views and they frequently interrupt each other. Kind of a nice summary for this relationship. Jacob sees Zendaya as too flippant and there's a mutual lack of understanding. Zendaya sees Jacob as too rational. I mean, this would have to be in his communication or something, or life views. There's no way this would be in an emotional sense. Jacob's Mercury squares Zendaya's Saturn. They have deep respect for the other's intelligence. So maybe that is where they're open to it, because I have a lot of respect for you. Do I agree? Not really, but there is respect there, so I'm open. Jacob feels inferior to Zendaya. I kind of see this because as far from what I know, Zendaya obviously, kind of grew up in the whole Hollywood scene and kind of had a head start from there. From what I know, Jacob just left Australia just to, go to Hollywood and kind of chased a dream of sorts and kind of got lucky as far as I know, and left when he, not Zendaya's age when she was by the time, he left, Zendaya would have already kind of had an established or semi-established career of sorts. So I feel in that sense, I don't blame Jacob for feeling inferior to Zendaya. Jacob can be intimidated by Zendaya's practicality. Yeah, where he would lose his patience with her, I'm not into this. There's serious tone in conversations, and negativity and criticism take over conversation. They both question their role in their relationship. So now it's time for Venus. Both their Venus signs are Cancers, so they care and protect each other. This is a nice thing we have been seeing in their relationship. It's a sentimental relationship and the relationship lacks structure. Honestly, I don't think so. Like, I feel like, it's pretty clear. I don't know, to me anyway. It seems to be pretty clear they do have some kind of like dynamic where they need to converse and work together frequently, but also this kind of like therapist-patient dynamic with, Jacob being the patient, Zendaya being the therapist. I feel like those dynamics are pretty clear to me anyway. They have shared values on family. This is interesting considering we saw like difficult marriage and desire to have children, a bit more serious domestic factors. Relationship takes time to start and they are devoted to each other. Potentially with relationship taking time to start, maybe because we have been seeing, a lot of friendship elements or, notes of friendship, and Jacob feeling immediately safe with Zendaya. Potentially, maybe a more serious relationship blossomed over time, like they were friends first and then they had a proper relationship. Jacob's Venus overlaid in Zendaya's 6th house. Jacob feels they don't have much in common. I mean, we have been seeing this. There do seem to be, like, strong differences, I guess, or just a lack of connection in certain areas. Zendaya senses Jacob isn't really into her, and neither sees the other as their type. It's a helpful or productive relationship. I feel like it's both. Like, definitely helpful for Jacob and productive for both. Together as a result of duty or obligation. I mean, if they met on, like, the set of Euphoria or, like, anywhere else in Hollywood where it was under the circumstances of work or networking, understandably so. Potentially that is where they were together for a duration of the relationship. Their Venus signs are conjunct together, so they appreciate each other's aesthetic tastes and they have a basic understanding of each other. I think basic understanding of each other, honestly, like, because it doesn't seem like it seems like they try to understand each other and they kind of see where the other are coming from, but it doesn't seem like they truly understand it and they are on board with it, At ease in each other's company, we've been seeing this. Potential for long-term. See, it seems to be potential for long-term and to be very serious, in certain ways. But, considering other things in this relationship, it doesn't seem to, have that potential. It seems like the potential was squandered. They are loving to each other and they share their social life. I'm sure they would. They would probably in very similar social circles. Zendaya's Venus square Jacob's Saturn. Criticism is rooted from jealousy. Did we see Jacob being critical? I mean, we did see that, like, Zendaya sees Jacob as too rational, but nothing, like, all critical. But another way you can see this, like, considering criticism is rooted from jealousy, potentially we did see how Jacob feels inferior to Zendaya. From Jacob's point of view, I feel like you would be jealous of Zendaya, She seems to have this sort of, like, head start that you don't. And maybe he could be critical of her in terms of, like, talent and, like, opportunity. Zendaya eventually withholds affection from Jacob. The way I read this is, like, Zendaya eventually withholding her sort of, like, source of comfort. What do you call it? Like, her comfort that she brings to Jacob and everything. And, like, her more therapist role, I guess, that I wouldn't say puts on is not the right word, that she sort of steps into for Jacob. Potentially that is why they no longer seem to be together, because she eventually withheld that, and it seems like that is the main reason why Jacob is here. Zendaya sees Jacob as unsympathetic, like coming back to like him being a bit more sensitive, unsympathetic, self-centered. Jacob sees Zendaya as childish and undisciplined here. Zendaya's Venus opposite Jacob's Neptune. Zendaya may prefer to idealize Jacob. Interesting. They both find it difficult to stay, particularly on Zendaya's thing. Like, I feel like, especially since she doesn't be emotional, maybe it doesn't get to her as much if she's not as emotional. But it would be kind of draining, I imagine, to be kind of like, the comfort source or comfort person for a particular person, Zendaya is so caught up in love, she doesn't know Jacob. Interesting. Jacob doesn't like Zendaya's idealization, and Jacob needs to be careful with promising too much. Jacob has a hard time being realistic with Zendaya. Jacob communicates with Zendaya vaguely, and neither can define what attracts them to the other. I mean, the only thing we've seen in terms of attraction is their differences, so potentially they wouldn't see that though, would they? They're like too busy being irritated by the differences. They're not like, you know, deep down, I actually really appreciate this about the other person. Lies occur to protect from pain. What? Jacob's Venus conjuncts Zendaya's Mars. The intensity doesn't fade and they always remember each other. That's kind of sad. Like, it's sad that we're seeing, like, you know, their deteriorating factors. It seems like this ended and, you know, in the public eyes anyway, it has. They have petty arguments and they know how to push each other's buttons. Jacob attracts Zendaya with his charm. Maybe that is what Zendaya kind of focuses on, his like more charming element. Jacob's Venus opposite Zendaya's Uranus. It's a spontaneous and sudden relationship. I feel like it would have happened suddenly. Like, I feel like timeline-wise in this relationship, it seems like they kind of suddenly met because of some kind of like, you know, duty, obligation, a potential work element. And it seems like it kind of, you know, their friendship started very quickly. You know, they both instantly felt comforted with each other, particularly with Jacob. And it seems like over time it turned into something a bit more serious. Unexpected events bring them together. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems like, you know, it just happened. They feel they cannot rely on each other and they are separated at times. Zendaya may resent Jacob's desire for commitment. Interesting. I mean, he seems to be very attached. Like, we have been seeing that, which sucks. Emotional roller coaster for Jacob. I'm sure it would be. He seems to be a bit more of an emotional person, so it makes sense. Jacob's Venus opposite Zendaya's Neptune. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized. But also Jacob may prefer to idealize Zendaya. Jacob is so caught up in love he doesn't know Zendaya. Which, this makes sense considering at the very beginning we saw, you know, he defines beauty according to Zendaya. She has no flaws to him. Zendaya doesn't like Jacob's idealization and Zendaya needs to be careful with promising too much. I feel like this is more of a problem for Zendaya because we saw this on the other way, but like Jacob, I don't feel like he's promising a whole lot or seems to be promising a whole lot. Whereas with Zendaya, I feel like it's a bit more blurred lines, it's a bit more grey. Considering Jacob seems to want commitment, Zendaya, I don't want to say he's giving him commitment, but she seems to be giving him a lot of attention. And maybe Jacob kind of sees that, you know, as a sort of promise, as a sort of like, oh, leading me on, you know, we're going to be very serious one day. Zendaya has a hard time being realistic with Jacob. I see that. Like, he doesn't deal well with realism. Zendaya communicates with Jacob vaguely. Jacob's Venus trine Zendaya's Pluto. It's emotionally fulfilling and it's not likely to grow stale. I mean, it's not a stale relationship. I just feel like it just deteriorates and not in like a nice slow burny way. Both enjoy growing from this relationship. And they want to have children together. This is weird. Why are we seeing, I mean, nothing against children. It's just a bit weird we're seeing, again, they want to have children together. Like, Jacob sees Zendaya as irresistible and Jacob sees Zendaya as a soulmate. See, this is what I mean. I feel like I don't want to say he got the wrong idea because if he is a bit more sensitive and tending to be attached, you know, if someone like Zendaya is giving him a lot of attention and everything, you know, particularly in a more emotional way, being a source of comfort to him, he may just interpret that as, you know, yeah, this is not great for Jacob. So now it's time for Mars. We have Zendaya's Mars in Cancer and Jacob's Mars in Libra. These are both cardinal signs. It's a passive-aggressive relationship and the relationship is slow to start. Yeah, I feel like a more serious relationship, I feel like that was a bit more slow to start. I feel like they had the friends thing first and then eventually turned a bit serious. I feel like, considering Jacob though, this just came into my head. Maybe, did they even have a relationship to start with? Maybe it was just so slow it didn't even start to begin with. Definitely, obviously more serious relationship, but I feel like also if Jacob, you know, is kind of, he seems to be getting the wrong idea here. Maybe Zendaya was just never that into him, saw him more as a friend and everything, rather than a serious, relationship. So, this is a bit iffy, I guess. Because I feel like you could see it as both ways. Like, it did turn into a more serious relationship. I wouldn't be shocked if that was the case. But potentially it was so slow to start, it didn't start to begin with. They both avoid confrontation. Maybe that is where they communicate with each other vaguely. Zendaya finds it easy to manipulate Jacob. She's not wrong though, is she? Oh no! They work through conflict together smoothly, and Zendaya likes the idea of having a baby with Jacob. Why do we keep seeing this child element? Like, again, nothing against children. It's coming up a lot here, and I'm like, oh, it's probably from Jacob's end. He sees this relationship as being a bit more serious. And now Zendaya. See, now I'm like, they surely had to have had some kind of relationship that was just slow to start and started as, like, friends and everything, because no way. No way. Like, Jacob, he's a bit more, he's him. But, like, Zendaya wanting this as well, like, surely this would have had to be, like, actual relationship, because what on earth? Jacob is equal and Zendaya is submissive. Interesting. Jacob's Mars overlaid in Zendaya's 8th house. It's love-hate, and Zendaya feels possessive of Jacob. I don't like this. We saw this again with Zendaya. I now feel weird about Zendaya, honestly. It's transformative, we see that again, and not surprisingly so. They will never get over each other, and Jacob feels drawn to Zendaya. Zendaya feels like a damsel in distress around Jacob. Oh gosh. Which is a bit weird. I would have thought maybe the other way around. Zendaya feels mesmerized by Jacob and possibility of a taboo in the relationship. They're both similar ages and everything. And I feel like, every possibility of a taboo in the relationship. I don't think so. Is it? I don't know. Maybe there's something I don't know. There's something weird there. Zendaya's Mars square Jacob's Saturn. Zendaya tries to impress Jacob, and Jacob's standards are in conflict of Zendaya's efforts. Jacob may try to control Zendaya as he thinks Zendaya is immature. Did we not see before how he sees her as childish and undisciplined? Oh gosh. I don't like that being repeated. Zendaya's Mars opposite Jacob's Neptune. Opposite approaches to taking risks, and they argue about the differences between their ones. I mean, I see this. I feel like they just have a very different viewpoint with life and everything. Like, they just see things differently, which is normal. But I feel like it is just in that kind of way where it contradicts a bit too much. Jacob's Mars squares Zendaya's Jupiter. They meet in a fun way. So potentially, because it seems like it was started off as, together as a result of duty and obligation. There seems to be a lot of work elements. So maybe they did meet at just, a nice, networking thing together. But also, if they did meet on Euphoria, meeting on the set, yes, it's work, but, it would be exciting, I imagine. Zendaya sees Jacob as selfish. We're seeing again. Yay. Jacob sees Zendaya's logic as hindrance, and they encourage each other to be reckless. Zendaya may be a bad influence on Jacob. The only way I can see this is, we saw the whole Zendaya, finds it easy to manipulate Jacob. And I don't blame her, because it seems like he seems to be just a very sensitive, soft man. And I feel like having someone like Zendaya around, I wouldn't say it's a bad thing, but I feel like, she kind of sees that she can take advantage of it. That's not the greatest thing. Jacob's Mars opposite Zendaya's Saturn. Both will discover what they want from a relationship. Yeah, I really hope they do. Zendaya finds Jacob's energy attractive initially. I don't like how we're seeing, the dwindling thing on Zendaya's end. Initially she finds him attractive and eventually she'll withhold affection. Zendaya becomes annoyed with Jacob's childishness and Zendaya tries to control Jacob. This is why I also don't like it. I feel like I would not be surprised if Jacob feels like he's getting mixed signals from Zendaya. Honestly, I don't blame him. Poor guy. Jacob feels like he's always being watched by Zendaya. Geez, how possessive is she exactly? Jacob becomes rebellious to Zendaya. We did see before, was it Jacob sees Zendaya as the traditions he wants to overcome? This is weird. We've only seen a couple notes so far, but like slight touch of an element of like child, rebelling to parent. They have a difference in views. Yeah, we've seen that quite a lot. Jacob's Mars trines Zendaya's Uranus. Jacob feels free around Zendaya. I assume that's why he would feel very comfortable around her. It's an unusual meeting and they respect each other's independence. That is very nice. Jacob is not a fan of Zendaya's lack of boundaries. I mean, I'm seeing this from like a point of view. Maybe like if, Jacob's getting the wrong signals. Maybe Zendaya, like, is still, sees Jacob as a friend. And, maybe, she's just not focusing on Jacob. She's doing her own thing. Jacob's Mars sextiles Zendaya's Pluto. Jacob's daring nature is attractive to Zendaya. I mean, the most daring thing I feel like he would have done is, like, move to America. He was at a young age, I believe. Like, I'm pretty sure he was quite young when he moved to America. That's pretty daring. It's competitive and potential to be destructive or dangerous. Yeah, with like encouraging each other to be reckless, I wouldn't be surprised. There's power issues and dramatic fights, which we did see a lot earlier, how they tend to be a bit more argumentative about things. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this one. I feel like it was a very interesting reading. I was definitely quite invested in this one, like, very, in-depth, I think. I really like this reading. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it below if you guys have any different interpretations of it. If you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. Besides that, give this video a like and I will see you guys next time. Bye!